In last video we have discussed that if you will try to console log and try to check in this particular variable, this variable is just an object that have a lots of information related to app component. So if you will console, then what the properties you will get, what the information you will get. So you can see there are lots of information you are getting. In the component instance you can see all the app component related thing you are getting. For example, you can see here the API is the instance of the services that hold the post data. Okay, and there is a form builder, you are using the form builder, and then it is a init form is just for reactive form instance. You can see this is the init form. Okay, so there are lots of information is available. So if you will go in prototype, you can check there is a ng on in it, there is a submit method. So lots of properties available, you can access any of these things. So it's a super easy. And similarly, if you will try to check the debug element, then in that debug element you can see there is a native node, and in the native node or maybe native element, let's go to the native element, and you can see there is a div, and this div is basically representing this particular HTML section. This is the form. Okay, so this is representing this one, debug element. So if you are running this test case in browser, then you can use this native element, otherwise you can use from the debug element. Both are the same. In the native element you can see there is the same, they both are referring to the same thing, both are referring to this particular HTML. Okay, so you can use any of these things, but yes, if you are running the test case in browser, then the recommended way is to use the debug element and then native element. So yeah, this is a actually you can use, and again it have from the debug element it have a component instance as well. So the same thing which you are getting here, the component instance. So you can use means everything whatever you are getting from here, you will get it from the debug element as well. So you can use the debug element because it's actually my preferable way to do that, because generally you are running the test case not in, maybe you cannot run in the browser as well. Okay, so I hope you get some idea. So in this way you will able to access all of this method and property including template URL. So this is actually your requirement to access these things, and you will able to access these things with the help of this fixture. Now let's try to find out how you can access a particular HTML, because without accessing the HTML you cannot update or you cannot add any user detail. Okay, you cannot change the user and password. So if you want to change the user and password, then you have to access these things. So how you can access? It's very simple. So for example, I am going to check it, for example user and the password. So I am going to create one variable which is a const, and there is one for the user and is equal to, it should be const user is equal to again the fixture dot debug element, as I said, dot native element. If you will use the native element, now you are at this particular place, you are here. Now you have to select a particular input field, then only you will able to set their value. So for better clarity, if you will console log, then you will get the information. So let's write here the console.log and see what the data you are getting in console. Now if you will check these things, you will find it will take some time. You can see that there is one div, within the div this is a form, and this form is nothing but the same form which is you defined in this particular app component.html. So this is the very similar. So now you want to use any suppose this one user field. So how you can do? So there are one id, you can use the document get element by id, because now you are at this particular selector, means it means you are here in the component in this page. Okay, so you can either use the document get element by id or maybe a query selector. So query, and then these are not a part of the you can say Angular. This is just a normal JavaScript. So I hope you know how you can select a particular section in HTML using the JavaScript. So this is the query selector, and within that query selector I am going to write here the hash, because I am selecting the id. So id, for the id we are writing the hash, and then we will copy it from here. So this is the user, user. So I'll just write it user. So now you are able to access this particular user. Okay, so if I will console log, then you will get some clarity. So let's see what the data you are getting. So it will take some time to compile. Now it's get compiled. You can see this input field gets selected. This is the username. Now you can do certain thing here. Okay, you can add their type as well. So because you are using in a TypeScript, you have to use their type as well. So type will be HTML element, HTML element, HTML input element. So HTML input element, this one. Similarly, I will do it for the password. So write it for the password. So here it is a PSS, and here I will also add PSS. Now you have done for the username and password. It's all right. Now you using this particular variable, you can change their value. So how you can do? So just you have to write here the value. As you know, you in this way you can change the value. Value is equal to, let's say I am going to write it, suppose that world Gyan Angular, something like that. So let's say Angular, because this name is already used, so let's try something different. And then password dot value is equal to, randomly I am adding any of this value. So now I have added a username value. It's all right. Now since you change the value but the event never occurred, event is whenever you will type in input field, then what will happen on the typing, there will be one event will get generated, which is the on change event. But here there is no any type, no any event get triggered. It just change the value programmatically. So it will not work as expected, because change detection will not work, because you just change the value from the DOM, from this particular input field user. You just change the value, event never happened. So how you can do these things? So you can do with the help of the dispatch event. This is also to like adding a means event, you can use a dispatch event. Okay, this is a part of the JavaScript. So you can write here the user dot dispatch event. dispatch event is the method, and then you have to add the event, what event you want to dispatch for this particular field, user field. So here write it new, and then event, and within that event you can write it here like input, something like that. But why there is an error? This should be in capital form because you are using the new keyword. So generally class, if you are using the class in JavaScript, then pattern is something, the first letter will be capital. So remember, okay. If you will use the any class constructor or maybe function constructor, so the first letter will be capital. This is actually a pattern. It will be follow throughout the JavaScript. The similar thing for the password as well. So just I am writing it here for the password. Now it's done. So now what you have done, you just change the value of this user and the password, and you did a dispatch event. Now the next is that after doing these things, you are checking that this value is reflecting in this particular component or not. Okay, so how you can check? So let's check it. So I will do a console log first. Console.log, and then we will check with the help of the component instance. So here I will write fixture dot component instance dot, this is the init form. So in init form dot, if you will do the value, then you will find the value. See, whenever you are making any changes in the HTML field, then same thing will also get reflected in your form. So just you are trying to try to check that after making these changes, you are getting their data in the component or not. Okay, component reactive form instance or not. So now it's done. Let's check it in console log, what the output you are getting. So you are getting the user, you are getting object which is the user is Angular, and the password is something which you have defined here. So it means it is working absolutely fine. Okay, so now since this test case will get passed, so for getting the test case passed, you can write it in the expect. This is the matcher method. So in the expect, you are expecting that this value will be equal to dot, you will write equal to equal will able to compare the object. So to equal, and then you have to write the object. This object is this one. So let's copy object, and I am going to add it here. Now in this case, what will happen if the component instance init form and the value will be also get changed, which is the user is Angular and password is something which you have changed it only from the HTML, then same thing is reflecting or not, you can check. So now you got an idea how you can access component like component instance, all of the method and property from the component, or the template URL part. So here in this test case, you are able to access the template URL part and the component instance, component method and property. In the next video, we will try to check it for the another test case, which is if you will make any changes in component, then same thing is reflecting in HTML or not, and then in the next so we'll discuss in the next video. Thank you very much.